The old man sat on the dusty street corner, his clothes hanging loosely on his frail frame. His voice, hoarse but resolute, echoed through the marketplace. "It's Adam, the biblical Adam. He caused all of this. If Adam had obeyed God, none of us would suffer. Not you, not me, not anyone." The townspeople were used to his cries. Children mimicked his words, laughing as they ran past. Merchants shook their heads, muttering about madness, while others avoided him altogether. His eyes, though weary, burned with conviction. One day, the king himself heard of this peculiar old man. Intrigued by the consistency of his wails, the king ordered his guards, "Bring him to me." In the grand hall, the old man stood, shivering under the scrutiny of the court. The king, a figure of authority and wisdom, leaned forward on his throne, studying the man's gaunt face. "Old man," the king began, his voice deep and commanding, "I hear you blame Adam for all the world's troubles. Tell me, why do you say this?" The old man straightened, his voice unwavering despite his haggard appearance. "Your Majesty, if Adam had not eaten the forbidden fruit, there would be no pain, no suffering. We would live in paradise, free from hunger, sickness, and despair. Adam's disobedience is the root of all misery." The court fell silent. Some whispered, others chuckled. But the king, after a moment of thought, raised his hand to silence the murmurs. "If Adam's disobedience troubles you so deeply," the king said, "then I shall grant you a life free of suffering. You shall have a mansion to live in, wealth to sustain you, and servants to tend to your every need. Choose any woman in the land to marry, and she will be yours." The old man fell to his knees, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Your Majesty, I am unworthy of such kindness. Thank you." The king raised a hand. "But there is one condition. In your new mansion there will be a room, a strange room. You must never enter it. The key is yours, but the choice is not." The old man, still overwhelmed by the king's generosity, nodded fervently. "I will never enter the room, Your Majesty. I swear it." The transformation in the old man's life was extraordinary. Overnight, he went from a penniless vagabond to a man of wealth and status. His mansion stood tall on a hill, its white walls gleaming in the sun. Inside, marble floors reflected the light from golden chandeliers. Servants rushed to fulfill his every wish. The old man married a kind and beautiful woman who brought warmth and laughter to his life. He ate the finest meals, wore the finest clothes, and lived without worry. For 8 years, he enjoyed a life he had never dreamed possible. But the strange room at the end of the grand hallway remained a mystery. The door was plain, unmarked, and always locked. The old man often passed it, his curiosity growing with each passing year. One day, as he walked the hallway, the old man stopped in front of the strange room. He held the key in his hand, turning it over and over. A thought gnawed at him. Why would the king forbid me from entering? He gave me the key, after all. Perhaps it's a test. Perhaps there's a treasure inside. Days turned into weeks, and the old man's curiosity consumed him. His once contented life now felt incomplete. He began to avoid his wife, snapping at servants for minor mistakes. The strange room was all he could think about. Finally, he could resist no longer. Late one night, he took the key and approached the door. His heart raced as he inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked. As the door creaked open, a blinding light enveloped him. He shielded his eyes, but when the light faded, he found himself standing on the cold, hard ground outside the mansion. His fine clothes were gone, replaced by the tattered rags he had worn before meeting the king. The mansion had vanished, and he was alone once more. The old man wandered the streets, his head hanging low. The servants, the wealth, the comfort, everything was gone. He found himself back at the corner where he had once sat, crying out to passers-by. And so he began his chant again, "It's Adam, the biblical Adam. If he had obeyed, none of this would have happened." When the king heard of the old man's return to his lament, his anger was swift. He summoned the man to the palace once more. The old man, now as ragged as the day he had first appeared, knelt trembling before the king. "You disobeyed me," the king said, his voice cold and stern. I gave you everything, a life without suffering, yet you chose to open the door I forbade. Why?" The old man, tears streaming down his face, whispered, I thought there might be something more. I was foolish, Your Majesty. Forgive me." The king's eyes burned with disappointment. "You are no different from the Adam you blame. He too was given paradise and broke the one rule he was given. You lament his disobedience, yet you did the same." The old man sobbed, but the king silenced him with a wave of his hand. "If I hear you chant Adam's name again, you will face consequences far worse than this." For weeks, the old man remained silent. He lived on scraps and slept on the cold ground, his spirit broken. But the weight of his thoughts became unbearable. One morning, as the sun rose over the city, his voice rang out once more. "It's Adam, the biblical Adam. He caused all of this." The townspeople paused, their eyes turning toward the palace, wondering what the king's next move would be. Would the old man ever learn, or was he destined to repeat the same mistake, blaming another while failing to see his own reflection in the tale of Adam?